In the next few minutes, you're going to learn 3 wonderful lessons from St. Francis de Sales on how to fundraise from his classic, The Introduction to the Devout Life. Hi, I'm Brice Sokolowski, the founder of CatholicFundraiser.net, a website that is completely dedicated to Catholics just like you who want to learn how to fundraise, improve how they fundraise, or find different ways of fundraising. For example, how to use the internet to find more donors and more donations. Before we jump in to St. Francis de Sales, I want you to download absolutely for free the 10 Commandments to Catholic Fundraising. These are 10 things that I highly recommend that you should be doing with your fundraising because, well, this has helped me. This is also feedback from other Catholics who have been fundraising, and it's just been downloaded by thousands of Catholics, and the overall consensus, if I can say, has been 2 thumbs up. So make sure that you download it absolutely for free. The link is right below if you're listening to this via podcast, via YouTube, via my website. There's always going to be a link below where you can download the 10 Commandments to Catholic Fundraising. Okay, St. Francis de Sales. Obviously, wonderful, wonderful saint. If you know a little bit about him, if you don't know much, or if you're already a big fan like me, well, this is definitely somebody that we can learn from, especially with fundraising. So he was the Bishop of Geneva during the time of the Protestant Reformation. Very, very big. I believe he is the patron saint of journalists as well. Let me know in the comments below if I'm right. Maybe he's the patron saint of somebody else, of some other cause. Let me know, but he's a very, very important person. And actually, I came across the invitation to the Devout Life, several years ago. And I guess he's always stuck with me. And then, this week I thought, well, what does he have to say with fundraising? And actually, within that book, there's actually a section on money, charity, almsgiving, etc., which I think we can really benefit from. So if you hear me pause, if you see me look, it's because look away from the screen. It's simply because I'm looking at my notes, which are going to help me guide you through 3 recommendations from St. Francis de Sales on how to fundraise. So the first way that he can help you fundraise better is you've got to demonstrate a sense of poverty of spirit to be observed in the midst of riches. So in the context of today, that means in the midst of riches, in the midst of prospects and donors, that you've got to, what he says, and I'm quoting him, desire your neighbor's good when he is desirous to part with them. So you've got to make sure that your desire for his donation or his money is not just, hey, give me money, but it's also part of his desire. I talk a whole lot about connecting missions. Fundraising stewardship, the Catholic way, is making sure that each party, each person gets what they want. The donor wants to be donating to a great mission. So make sure that they're donating to something that's very desirable. So, and you also, St. Francis says, you also have to take care to increase your wealth with peace and charity. So it's not just a matter of fundraising for the sake of fundraising, but you've got to do it within the fruits of the Holy Spirit, making sure that the other person is benefiting as much as you. The second recommendation is you've got to practice true and real poverty. That's what St. Francis is saying. So when you're fundraising, you've got to stay humble. And what this means, and I'm quoting him, that's why I'm going to be pausing, you've got to be more careful than worldly men are to make goods profitable and fruitful. So yes, you're looking for donors who can donate, but when you do get their money, when you're asking for donations, you've got to make sure that you steward that money really well. You've got to make sure that the goods are profitable and fruitful. The classic line is every donation is going straight to the cause. Well, you've got to make sure that that happens, and you've got to be demonstrating that to people. You've got to be communicating that. And St. Francis talks about a gardener and how a gardener is much more meticulous when he's doing the gardening for a king or a prince or someone of a very prominent person. They want to make sure that they're doing a really good job because it's their job. And he relates that with the gifts that God is giving us. So everything that we're receiving is from God. And so St. Francis is highlighting that when you do receive things, you've got to recognize that it's not just from somebody, which therefore you've got to be taking good care of it, but it also is from God himself. So we've got to make sure that we don't think about just, a small donation is just a small donation and a big donation is a big donation. They're all equally important, and you've got to be taking care of that. And the third recommendation from St. Francis on fundraising is you not to be ashamed. Don't be ashamed to ask, but always practice, again, humility and poverty in spirit. So he quotes in the introduction to A Devout Life is, "Be not ashamed to be poor, nor to ask alms in charity. Receive with humility what shall be given to you, and bear the denial with meekness." So if somebody says no, don't be upset about it. And also, frequently remember the journey, and this is really cool. Remember the journey of Our Lady. He talks about Our Lady going to Egypt, and she kind of had a difficult life, wouldn't you agree? She just had to preserve the life of what he calls her dear son, and how much content, poverty, and misery she was obliged to suffer. So you have Mother Mary as an example of just taking things with meekness and humility and just moving forward. So don't be upset if you do have to ask for donations, but keep that level of spirit of poverty. I hope these 3 recommendations from St. Francis has been helpful. Please leave a comment below. Share this with somebody that you think would benefit from it, but definitely let Catholics know that this type of resources are available on helping them align their Catholic faith with their mission, especially when it comes to fundraising. God love you, and I look forward to speaking with you next week. Bye-bye.